Well, hey, Driven Youth Group, I really trust that you're doing well. It sounds like we're hearing some good news that it's possible that we might be coming back maybe the beginning of May, hopefully, God willing. Who knows? Maybe before. I don't know. Um, but I hope that your week went well. I hope that you had a great time worshiping the Lord together, at least online, as we listened to Pastor Van's message. I trust it was an encouragement to your heart, and I hope that this Exile challenge has been an encouragement to your heart. Again, I just want to encourage you, if you haven't been getting in the Word, just open up the book of Esther. You're going to have a wonderful time reading the book of Esther if you haven't read it before. But if you have, you're going to have a great time reading it again and just being reminded of God's providential work in the world and also in our lives. That what He's doing now has an impact on us today. And I think the book of Esther reminds us of this. There's so much that could be said about this first chapter, so I got to be cautious. I'm going to start working through the book of Esther with Bakerton Bible Church as well. So, but Esther chapter 1, just the irony and the many different things that are going on in that chapter. It was just great. Interesting thing about Esther, of course, this is one of the things that people bring up all the time, is that the book of Esther does not mention God's name one time. It doesn't mention God's name one time. Well, what is that all about? Well, I think it's purposeful. I think it's teaching us a lesson about God's providence. God's providence is His working throughout the world to protect and preserve His creation, as well as working out His sovereign plan throughout the ages, working all things together for His good purposes. Okay, so that's basically God's providence. So when we study history, we're actually studying God's providence throughout history. There's good things that happen. There's bad things that happened as well. And God is working through all that to work out His good purposes. And the book of Esther reminds us of that God is at work. Though we might not see Him, though we might not hear Him, we actually see His fingerprints all over the place. We see His fingerprints all over the place. And the book of Esther reminds us of this, that God preserves and protects His people. Okay. Esther chapter 1, it reminds us, starts off in verses 1 to 9 of this king. In probably most of your versions it says King Ahasuerus, if you pronounce it that way. But he's mostly well known for his name, King Xerxes. King Xerxes. This was during probably the zenith of the Persian Empire. And verses 1 to 9, the author of the book of Esther, who we don't know who it is, it could be Mordecai, it could be Nehemiah, it could be Ezra, we just don't know. It's not said. So the author of Esther, he presents this king as just being grand, he's proud, he's arrogant, he's demonstrating his greatness, his riches, his power, his glory, his splendor, his pomp. All these things are being expressed here about this king. It's almost as if the king is being presented, or he's presenting himself as God, right? And this is kind of how he's presented. And so he's in control of all things. He does all things. And all of a sudden, he runs into a wall that he cannot control. And who is it? It's his wife. And so he has these banquets going on. All these men are in this drunken stupor. And then he wants to not only show off all the amazing things in his kingdom and all the amazing things that he's done, but now he wants to show off his wife because she was gorgeous, apparently. That's what it says. It was beautiful. She was beautiful. And he wants to parade her around and have all these men gawk at her and look at her. And what does she say? It says in verse 12, but Queen Vashti says, I'm not going to parade myself around like that. I'm not going to dishonor my position. I'm not going to dishonor myself. My looks, myself, it's for the king's eyes only. And though Queen Vashti in history was actually a pretty wicked person, some of the things that she did, but she was kind of pretty honorable here. And in light of all the things that could have been done to her, she says no. In spite of potentially losing everything, even her life, she tells the king no. It kind of reminds us of one thing. What are we willing to sacrifice for our character? Or what about our character are we willing to sacrifice in order for people to look at us in a good light, in order to get the attention of a particular individual, a high-profile individual, to get a particular position? All these things. What are we willing to sacrifice? Queen Vashti is a little bit of an example here that we should look at. She wasn't willing to sacrifice her honor, her character, in order for these men to lust after her. She said no. Well, what's the king to do? Now he's made this big scene that he's going to bring the queen over here for everybody to look at, and she tells him no. We have hundreds, maybe thousands of men here, drunk, and you could probably hear a pin drop. What? She said no. Oh no. She disobeyed the king. What's he going to do? He's got to do something, right? And so then the king makes this decision out of fear, out of anger, in an intoxicated state, being embarrassed. His pride was hurt, all these things. Now he makes a bad decision, and he gets counsel from these quote-unquote wise men who then give this decree that telling the king, not only did this hurt you, but it also hurt us. And so now you got to make this decision, because this is not only going to hurt us, it's going to hurt all the husbands in the kingdom. Now the women are just going to disobey their husbands, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And they make this ridiculous decision, and making matters even worse. Dishonoring both husbands and wives in this. So they felt that they could receive honor and respect by demanding honor and respect. One thing we have to realize, honor and respect are not demanded, are not decreed, don't come by an edict. They come by earning it. Respect and honor are earned, right? And so we see all this developing in order for something to happen. So what do? They oust Queen Vashti. She's gone. She can't ever be in front of the king. Now her position is going to be given to somebody else, right? Her position is going to be given to somebody else. Now we see that this is opening up for someone to enter into this position. And that's where we get into Queen Esther. So you ask the question, where's God? God is all over this. This king, he's not really in control of anything, though he likes to present himself that way. But we see that God is in control not only of the king, but also the will of the queen in some sense. God is working out his providential plan through his way in order for his purposes to come about. And that's what the whole book of Esther is about. So this is going to be the same thing over and over again. There's just irony after irony comes by, head spins like, whoa, didn't see that coming kind of deal in the book of Esther. And I'm excited to get into it even more. But the question we've got to ask ourselves, where's God in your life? And the answer is, God is everywhere. No matter what kind of circumstances you and I find ourselves in, whether difficult or joyous, God is there. God is there at work in your life. Jesus says he'll never leave us nor forsake us. He is there with us until the end. What do we have to do? We have to take God at His word. We have to take God as a word and trust that He's there and He's at work in our lives. And He's at work in your life. Well, I trust that you're doing well, and I want to encourage you. Keep reading. Keep reading. Get into God's word. Get to know your Lord through His word. He's written it for you, and I can't wait to pound in even more in the book of Esther. Well, I hope to see you guys pretty soon. Praying for you. Talk to you later. God bless.